This podcast is brought to you by Gamer Nation Productions. Gamer Nation, the new gaming podcasting network by gamers for gamers. Roll with us.
Welcome to the Confessions of an Arcade Addict podcast, an introspective look at video gaming from the classic era to the modern day. Now here is your host, Brian.
Hey folks, what's going on out there? Brian here, and this is episode number 78 of the Confessions of an Arcade Addict podcast. Okay, it's been a while since I recorded and posted episode 77. The upshot of it is, let's see, I'm struggling a little bit with a gaming malaise. My entire house got sick. I'm still recovering from it. It wasn't COVID, thankfully, but it still knocked me on my butt for a couple of days. I had to call into the arcade 2 Saturdays ago because, it was just that bad and that nasty between the sneezing, the coughing, the sinus drainage, and the overall just lethargic feeling. So I just took the long weekend and just chilled. But now I'm going to make up for it because in 2 weeks' time, on the weekend of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I'll be working. By the time you hear this, I think, it'll either be around that time or just after that time. I'll be working all 3 days at the arcade, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We had one of our employees leave because he got a gig as a plumber's apprentice, and that pays a lot of money. So, once he told me that, I'm like, I understand why you're leaving. It's not that the arcade pays badly, they don't, but, it just doesn't compare to even a plumber's apprentice. They make a really good living just doing that. So, he left. I wished him well. And we have one new guy, but he works a little bit sparingly, but he might be working more soon. We'll see. And then we're probably going to have to hire someone else. Everything at the arcade is going just wonderfully. Thanks to our tech Travis, our down machine rate is like under 3%, if less. During my shift on last Saturday, I think only one machine was down, and that was okay. We got the new X-Men. I put pictures of it on my Instagram and also the Instagram for the arcade in Brighton, and provided that my coworker didn't do it already, I will take a little gameplay video and just put it up on TikTok or something like that, and we just go from there. We've been pretty much batting 1,000 when it comes to the new pinball machines. We got the Avatar machine, I think last month, like late last month, and then, or like early this month, and then we got the X-Men. So, we're doing okay. A lot more people are asking about pinballs, as they come out, and asking if we get them. And Also, we have, and that's the other thing I have to remember to do is we have what is it called? Insider Connect, Stern Insider Connect. We have that for all the compatible Stern pinball machines, of which we have quite a few. We've got how many pinball machines? 45? And an overwhelming number of them are Sterns. You know, and mostly Stearns, a couple of Chicago Gamings, three Jersey Jacks, and some Williams, a couple of Bally's, but yeah, the overwhelming majority are Stern machines. So yeah, we've got that going on. So people will be able to use that to get their high scores and all the perks that come with Insider Connect. So that's really cool. That's pretty awesome, actually. Shout out to the owner Mike and his son Michael, whoops, for doing that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this weekend coming up, even though that means I'm going to be working, let's see, starting Sunday the 20th, going all the way. Oh, that's right. The 27th I have off. Or not the 27th. Yeah, the 27th. I have that off. So it starts from the 27th. 27th. Go through the week. First, second, third. All the way through that week. So that's about 2 weeks in a row. That I'll be working. So, it is what it is. As Bugs Bunny once said, it's a living. All right. So, aside from that, trying to get back into playing some games, like I've been saying through social media. I've been going through a gaming malaise, and a couple of streamers that I follow have been doing the same thing, to the point where one of them hasn't streamed, I think, in over a month. I'm wondering if she's actually over it, because she just doesn't have any, there aren't any games that are, catching her attention, and she's kind of bored with the games that she was playing before, so she's not been on, and that's a shame, because she's a great streamer, and I like hanging out with her, and she's really friendly, and she's always willing to help noobs, so to speak, to whatever game she's playing, like Division 2, or oh goodness, now I forgot the name of the one game she plays a lot, but there's another game she plays a lot that she's put multiple hundreds of hours into, and she has no problem helping people out with that. So yeah, but she hasn't been on recently, and I kind of miss her. She's always fun to hang out with, on a Sunday night, or if I'm chilling on my break at work and I happen to catch her stream, I'll pop in for a second just to say, hey, what's up, before I, go back to work and whatnot. So, let's see, what else is going on? Well, that's kind of about it for now. I am planning on probably the this coming weekend. I'm probably going to be going up to the last level. I plan on going up there and checking it out, and of course, doing a rundown and review, all that fun stuff that you've come to expect from this podcast. That's the next one on the hit parade. I'm probably going to be going up there, I'm hoping the end of next week. I have, if I remember my work schedule correctly, I think I have to work this Sunday coming up, the 20th. So next Sunday, the 27th, I'm going to go up there, and we'll see what's going on from there. And then, of course, the weekend of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, I'll be at the arcade, all 3 nights, like a hacky comedian. Yeah, I'll be here all weekend. So yeah, all right. So yeah, that's the thing. I'm going to be going up to last level. That's the next place I want to go to. One of these days, I'm going to try to plan out a trip out to Pastimes in Girard, which is a suburb of Youngstown. So I plan on going out there at some point. I'm probably going to make like a little mini weekend of it. Probably, you know what? I just thought of it. And yeah, if I can swing getting the car rental and have enough money to do it, I'm going to do that on my birthday. As a matter of fact, I think the pay that I'm going to be getting from the long weekend in a couple weeks might just finance that trip. Now that I think about it. Because, yeah, that's something I want to do, so, I might as well. So, yeah, that's an idea. That's a definite idea. Mental note for later. All right, so enough of me blabbering. I did check emails and voicemails, and nothing's out there. So once again, if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, a game that you would like me to cover if I haven't covered it already, anything of that nature, just hit me up. arcadeaddictbrian@gmail.com. And there is also a phone number for voicemails. That number is area code 734-623-0832. And by all means, state which podcast that you're calling for, because I share this number between this podcast and Thakos Hammer, our Dungeons & Dragons podcast. So if you've got something you want to say to me on this podcast, just say, hey, I'm calling for Confessions of an Arcade Addict. And go right ahead with your comments or questions or whatever you have. Okay, I'm on social media. As always, I'm on Facebook. I did get rid of Twitter, so yeah, I'm not on there anymore. Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Tumblr. You can find me on all these places. You have all of this, the places on, will you stop? Sorry, folks, I'm trying to work on something here. There we go. Also streaming on Twitch, as always, and all of my links are in one place. That is on Linktree. The address is linktr.ee/arcadeaddictbrian. You'll get all of the social media outlets right there. And also you'll see my Twitch and other ways to get a hold of me. So it's all there, one spot. I don't have to go through the rundown of all the screen names I use on social media anymore. Thankfully, Linktree is a godsend for a podcaster. So yeah, you have all that. So then, with all that out of the way, let's get on to this short show. I've got 3 topics, and not a lot of time to do all of this, so let's get right on to it, and let's go into Are You Experienced?
I'm too old for this. Hiding in front seats like a teenager.
Hoppy, I think I'm getting too old for this stuff.
I'm getting too old for this.
Listen, you was born too old for this.
I'm getting too old for this.
I'm getting too old for this. Lying wet arsed in the heather chasing other men's cattle.
I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
Maybe we're getting too old for this. What do you think, huh?
I'm not too old for this shit. I'm not too old for this shit. You will not. We're not too old for this shit.
We're not too old for this shit.
We're not too old for this. Say it like you believe.
We're not too old for this shit.
Yeah.
We're not too old for this
I'm not
shit.
gonna buy a hemorrhoid cushion.
We're not too old for this shit.
Are You Experienced? Burgertime. This game frustrated me to no end, but let's get into it a little bit. Okay, I have some thoughts at the end of this segment, but I'm going to go through the information that's available for it, which is, of course, through Wikipedia. So here it is. Alright. Burgertime, originally released as Hamburger in Japan, is an arcade video game from Data East. It was published in 1982 for the Deco cassette system. The player controls Chef Peter Pepper, who walks across oversized ingredients in a maze of platforms and ladders, causing them to fall and stack on buns below, eventually creating completed burgers. The chef is pursued by anthropomorphic hot dogs, fried eggs, and pickles. A limited supply of pepper can be thrown at aggressors immediately in front of Peter, briefly stunning them. The game's original title of Hamburger was changed to Burgertime outside of Japan, which was also used for all ports and subsequent games in the series worldwide. In the United States, Data East USA licensed Burgertime for distribution by Bally Midway as a standard dedicated arcade game. Data East also released Burgertime in the United States through its Deco cassette system. The Data East and Midway versions are distinguished by the manufacturer's name on the title screen and by the marquee and cabinet artwork. The game itself is identical. The first home port of Burgertime was released for the Intellivision console in 1983, followed by versions for other systems. There have been multiple sequels for both the arcade and home. When Data East went bankrupt in 2003, G-Mode bought most of Data East's intellectual properties, including Burgertime, Burgertime Deluxe, Super Burgertime, and Peter Pepper's Ice Cream Factory. Okay, let's move on to the gameplay. The object of the game is to build a number of hamburgers while avoiding enemy foods. The player controls the protagonist, Chef Peter Pepper, with a 4-position joystick and a pepper button. Each level is a maze of platforms and ladders in which giant burger ingredients, the bun, the meat patty, tomato, and lettuce are arranged. When Peter walks the full length of an ingredient, it falls to the level below, knocking down any ingredient that happens to be there. A burger is completed when all of its vertically aligned ingredients have been dropped out of the maze and onto a waiting plate. The player must complete all burgers to finish the board. 3 types of enemy food items wander the maze: Mr. Hot Dog, Mr. Pickle, and Mr. Egg. The player can score extra points by either crushing them under a falling ingredient or dropping an ingredient while they are on it. In the latter case, the ingredient falls 2 extra levels per enemy caught on it. Crushed or dropped enemies return to the maze after a short time. At the start of the game, the player is given a limited number of pepper shots to use against enemies. Pressing the button causes Peter to shake a cloud of pepper in the direction he is facing. Any enemy touching the cloud is briefly stunned, and Peter can safely move through them. Ice cream, coffee, and French fries appear on occasion, awarding bonus points and 1 extra pepper shot when collected. There are 6 boards of increasing difficulty, with more burgers and ingredients, more enemies, and or layouts that make it easier for Peter to become cornered. After the player completes the 6th board, the cycle repeats. 1 life is lost whenever Peter touches a non-stunned enemy, and the game ends once all lives are lost. Okay, let's move on to the ports. Mattel Electronics obtained the rights to Burgertime from Data East and released the Intellivision version in 1983. That year, they also released versions for the Atari 2600, Apple II, Aquarius, and as a self-booting disc, the IBM PC. A version for Data East for the TI-99-4A was published in 1984. A ColecoVision port was published by Coleco in May of 1984. Ports were released for the Famicom in 85, MSX in 86, Nintendo Entertainment System in 1987, and Famicom Disk System in 1988. Moving on to the reception. In Japan, Game Machine listed Hamburger as the 11th highest grossing arcade video game of 1982. Game Machine later listed Hamburger on their June 15, 1983 issue as being the 23rd most successful table arcade unit of the month. Following its North American debut at the AMOA show in November of 82, it was reviewed by Video Games Magazine, which listed it as the show's 4th best game, while saying it was, quote, the stupidest, silliest game ever, and that's why you couldn't get people off of Burgertime games with a crowbar, end quote. The review praised the music, challenging mazes, and comical characters. Computer and Video Games gave it a positive review, comparing the level structure to Donkey Kong, stating that Burgertime has a charm all its own, and praising the controls. The Deseret News called Burgertime, quote, one of the real surprises of 1983 for the Intellivision, end quote, and gave the ColecoVision version 3.5 stars out of 4. Computer Games Magazine gave the ColecoVision and Coleco Adam versions a positive review, stating that, quote, the terrific flavor, end quote, of the arcade game remains, but, quote, the playfield has been greatly reduced, end quote. Burgertime received a certificate of merit in the category of 1984 Video Game of the Year, less than 16K ROM, at the 5th Annual Arcade Awards. That's a rather specific award, let me tell you. Okay, The Legacy, talking about the sequels. An arcade spin-off, Peter Pepper's Ice Cream Factory, and an arcade sequel, Super Burgertime, were not widely released. Peter Pepper's Ice Cream Factory was 1984, and Super Burgertime was 1990. Super Burgertime stars Peter Pepper Jr. and allows 2 players to play at once. It is fairly true to the original, but with many added features and a different style of graphics. A console-only sequel called Diner was created after the 1984 purchase of Intellivision from Mattel by INTV Corp. It was programmed by Ray Kastner, the programmer for the Intellivision version of Burgertime. In Diner, Peter Pepper must kick balls of food so they roll off platforms and down ramps and onto a large plate at the bottom of the screen while avoiding or crushing enemy food items that are trying to stop him. Burgertime Deluxe was released for the Game Boy in 1991, featuring similar gameplay to the original arcade game. Burgertime Deluxe was re-released for the Nintendo Switch through the Nintendo Switch Online Game Boy service. A crossover with the Flintstones titled The Flintstones Burgertime and Bedrock was released on the Game Boy Color in 2000. Interesting. Namco released Burgertime Delight for mobile devices in 2007. It includes new graphics, character, and power-ups. There are 6 arcade levels and 8 enhanced mode levels with perils of falling ice and rising fire from the grill. Besides the pepper of the classic game, there is now a salt shaker that, when collected, stuns all the enemies on the screen. A 3D update, Burgertime World Tour, was released in 2011 for Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network, and in 2012 for the WiiWare. It was delisted from Xbox Live Arcade in April 2014. Gmode and Xseed Games released a reimagining of the game on October 8, 2019, titled Burgertime Party for the Nintendo Switch, with new modes and redesigns. Okay, re-releases. The arcade version of Burgertime has been included in various collections, including Arcade's Greatest Hits Midway Collection 2 for the PlayStation and Data East Arcade Classics for the Wii. In late 2019, early 2020, it was released with fellow Data East titles Karate Champ, Caveman Ninja, and Bad Dudes in an arcade cabinet for home use by manufacturer Arcade 1-Up. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Although the cabinet comes with 4 games in one, its artwork only features the graphics of Burgertime. The NES and FDS versions were available on the Wii Virtual Console. Its Game Boy counterpart, Burgertime Deluxe, was released for the 3DS Virtual Console in 2011. The NES version is also included in the 2017 compilation Data East All-Star Collection for the NES. The 1982 arcade version was released through Arcade Archives for the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch on July 30th, 2020. Let's see. Clones. Clones for home systems include Mr. Wimpy, Burger Chase, Burgertime for the Interceptor Micros, Burger Space, Chip Factory, Burger Boy, Basic Burger, Barmy Burgers, Burger Builder, and Lunchtime. Ugh, say all that 5 times fast. Burger Space is a 2007 open source clone. Let's see. Peter Pepper appears in the movies Wreck-It Ralph and Pixels. A Burgertime parody called Burger Boss appears in an episode of Bob's Burgers with the same name. That's cool. Let's see, and finally the scores. On September 5th, 2005, Brian L. Wagner of Turbotville, I think it's Turbotville, apologies to any residents there, Turbotville, Pennsylvania, achieved a record score of 8,601,300 points and improved to exactly 9 million on June 2nd, 2006. According to Twin Galaxies, he improved it further to 11,512,500 points on September 19, 2008, at the Challenge Arcade in Wyomissing, Pennsylvania. The main world record was verified by Twin Galaxies on December 2nd, 2016, as 7,837,750 points by Roger Edwin Blair III of Mountain City, Tennessee. The that's pretty interesting considering I'm so terrible at it. And that's pretty much all the information for Burgertime. So let's move on to my brief experiences with it. This was another game that I wasn't all that good at, but knew such people as Mark, who it seemed the game was made for. It challenged you in several ways, particularly your ability to stay one step ahead of the evil ingredients as they pursued and tried to trap you. We have a Burgertime machine at the arcade in Brighton, and I played a game recently to see if I still sucked at it, and yes, I do. Yeah, I got through the first 2 levels, and then it was over. I give this game respect, though, because it does deserve its respect. And that's pretty much it for Burgertime. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments about it, you are an expert at Burgertime, let me know. arcadeaddictbrian@gmail.com. And also link TRDEE/arcadeaddictbrian. Okay, let's move right on to home systems.
There's no place like home.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Look, this is not a game, Mac.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Shall we play a game?
Love to.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Clear path! I'm going home!
Okay, home systems, the PlayStation 3. Alright, I am going to put a caveat on this and basically say, look, I didn't own a PS3. I mean, the last video game home console that I own is an Xbox 360. I never did get a PlayStation 3 because, quite honestly, I was very happy with my PlayStation 2. And, you know, the prices for these things were going up. And that's just how it is. So let's get right back to Wikipedia and let's dive into the information about it. The PlayStation 3 is a home video game console developed and marketed by Sony Computer Entertainment. The successor to the PlayStation 2, it is part of the PlayStation brand of consoles. It was first released on November 11, 2006 in Japan, November 17, 2006 in North America, and March 23, 2007 in Europe and Australasia. The PlayStation 3 competed primarily against Microsoft's Xbox 360 and Nintendo's Wii as part of the 7th generation of video game consoles. The console was first officially announced at E3 2005 and was released at the end of 2006. It was the first console to use a Blu-ray disc technology as its primary storage medium. The console was the first PlayStation to integrate social gaming services, including the PlayStation Network, as well as the first to be controllable from a handheld console, though its remote connectivity with PlayStation Portable and PlayStation Vita. In September 2009, the slim model of the PS3 was released. It no longer provided the hardware ability to run PS2 games. It was lighter and thinner than the original version and featured a redesigned logo and marketing design, as well as a minor startup change in software. A super slim variation was then released in late 2012, further refining and redesigning the console. During its early years, the system received a mixed reception due to its high price, $599 for a 60GB model and $499 for a 20GB model. A complex processor architecture and a lack of quality games, but was praised for its Blu-ray capabilities and untapped potential, quote-unquote. The reception improved over time. The system had a slow start in the market, but managed to recover, particularly after the introduction of the slim model, and managed to sell 87.4 million units to outsell the competing Xbox 360 and become the 8th best-selling video game console in history. Its successor, the PlayStation 4, was released in November 2013. On September 29, 2015, Sony confirmed that sales of the PS3 were to be discontinued in New Zealand, but the system remained in production in other markets. The shipments of new units to Europe and Australia ended in March 2016, followed by North America, which ended in October 2016. Headed into 2017, Japan was the last territory where new units were still being produced until May 29, 2017, when Sony confirmed the PS3 was discontinued in Japan. Okay, going on to the history. The PS3 began development in March 9th, 2001 when Ken Kutaragi, then the president of Sony Computer Entertainment, announced that Sony, Toshiba, and IBM would collaborate on developing the Cell microprocessor. At the time, Shuhei Yoshida led a group of programmers with this hardware team to explore the next generation game creation. By early 2005, focus within Sony shifted toward developing PS3 launch titles. In September 2004, Sony stated that the PS3 would utilize Blu-ray and that the console would also play DVDs and CDs, and the following December, Nvidia was announced as a design partner for the console's graphics chip. Sony officially unveiled the PS3 to the public on May 16, 2005 at E3 2005, along with a boomerang-shaped prototype design based on the 6-axis controller. A functional version of the system was not present there, nor at the Tokyo Game Show in September 2005, although demonstrations such as Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, were held at both events on software development kits and comparable personal computer hardware. Video footage based on the predicted PS3 specifications was also shown, notably a Final Fantasy VII tech demo. The initial prototype was shown in May 2005, featuring 2 HDMI ports, 3 Ethernet ports, and 6 USB ports. However, when the system was shown again a year later at E3 2006, these were reduced to 1 HDMI port, 1 Ethernet port, and 4 USB ports, presumably to cut costs. 2 hardware configurations were also announced for the console, a 20GB model and a 60GB model, priced at $499 and $599 respectively. The 60GB model was to be the only configuration to feature an HDMI port, Wi-Fi internet, flash card readers, and a chrome trim with the logo in silver. Both models were announced for a simultaneous worldwide release on November 11, 2006 for Japan and November 17, 2006 for North America and Europe. On September 6, 2006, Sony announced that the PAL region PS3 launch would be delayed until March 2007 because of a shortage of materials used in the Blu-ray drive. At the Tokyo Game Show on September 22, 2006, Sony announced that it would include an HDMI port on the 20GB system, but a chrome trim, flashcard readers, silver logo, and Wi-Fi would not be included. Also, the launch price for the Japanese 20GB model was reduced by over 20%, and the 60GB model was announced for an open pricing scheme in Japan. During the event, Sony showed 27 playable PS3 games running on final hardware. Alright, and then the launch. The PS3 was first released in Japan on November 11, 2006 at 7 o'clock a.m. According to Media Create, 81,639 PS3 systems were sold within 24 hours of its introduction in Japan. There were reports that many of the initial systems were obtained by businessmen who paid mainly Chinese nationals to buy the system without any software to resell on eBay, and as a result of this, there were more hardware units sold than there were games. Ridge Racer 7 was the highest-selling game on launch day. Soon after its release in Japan, the PS3 was released in North America on November 17, 2006. Reports of violence surrounded the release of the PS3. A customer was shot, campers were robbed at gunpoint, and customers were shot in a drive-by shooting with BB guns, and 60 campers fought over 10 systems. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. And that's the funny part, because I'm just, sidebar here, I mean, I remember when the PS1 came out, I remember when the PS2 came out, and it's just, everything increased. You know, like people were paying just exorbitant amounts of money for the PS1, even more exorbitant in the PS2, and you know, and then you've got all this going on, you know, for the PS3. You know, yeah, Japan has like over 80,000 systems, and they sold within a day. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, 60 campers fought over 10 systems. That's hilarious. And you know, and that's the funny part, and it's going on even today, where you've got like the Xbox One S, I think it's called, and the PlayStation 5, and at launch, it's always the same story. They don't have enough. They don't make enough to have an actual decent launch where a significant percentage of the people looking to buy the system actually can buy the system. I mean, all the ridiculousness surrounding the PS5 release was just that ridiculous. I mean, I'm going to talk about the PS5 eventually, but yeah, it's just as each generation went on, because I think the same thing happened with the PS4, and then the PS5 had all kinds of shenanigans going on. Yeah, it's just silly. Okay. Let's see. The console was originally planned for a global release through November, but at the start of September, the release in Europe and the rest of the world was delayed until March. Since it was a somewhat last-minute delay, some companies had taken deposits for pre-orders, at which Sony informed customers that they were eligible for full refunds, or could continue the pre-order. On January 24, 2007, Sony announced that the PS3 would go on sale on March 23, 2007 in Europe, Australia, the Middle East, Africa, and New Zealand. On March 7, 2007, the 60GB PS3 launched in Singapore with a price of $799 in Singapore money. In the United Arab Emirates, I can't talk, edit. In the United Arab Emirates, the system retailed for 24.99 dirhams on March 23rd, slightly less than the price in Europe. Sony also hosted a large party with the singer Shakira performing at the Dubai Autodrome. This is the corporation stuff. It's just not enough to just launch your console. You gotta do something with a big splash, and of course they did it in Dubai. Of course they did. I wonder how much Shakira got paid to do that party. Anyway, moving along. The PS3 sold 600,000 units in the first 2 days of its release in Europe. It became the fastest-selling home system in the United Kingdom with 165,000 units sold in 2 days, and became the second fastest-selling system in the UK overall, the fastest being the PlayStation Portable. Some British retailers claimed that the PS3 was subjected to as many as 20,000 pre-order cancellations, while others cited a huge demand for the system. System sales for the following week were down 82%, selling 30,000 units, with a 60% drop in sales of the two most popular titles, Motorstorm and Resistance Fall of Man. Its UK launch price of £425 sterling was higher than its Japanese and American prices, with a value-added tax cited as a reason by a staff member. The continental Europe price was €599, while in Ireland it was €629. That's a lot of money back then. That was back when the euro was worth $2.50 US or something like that. But anyway, to continue. Over 27,000 units were sold in Australia over the course of the first 10 days of sales, and 9 of the top 10 best-selling games, including systems and handheld, of the week were for the PS3. Overall, software and hardware sales resulted in a $33 million Australian dollar net for Sony. One analyst called it a spike in retail spending not previously witnessed at the launch of any other system in Australia. In New Zealand, over 4,800 units were sold in the first week, generating over $6.8 million New Zealand in hardware and software retail sales. On April 27, 2007, it launched in India with the 60GB model retailing for $39,990. I think it's rupees. That's the equivalent of $1,000 US with the conversion rate at the time. In Mexico, the 20GB model was launched with a price of 10,495 pesos, or $974 US at the time. Jeez. Yikes. The console was launched in South Korea on June 16, 2007 as a single version equipped with an 80GB hard drive and IPTV. Alright, let's talk about the games real quick, and I think I'll call it there. There's a bunch more information. I just suggest going to Wikipedia to read about it. They talk about the slim model and the super slim model, but I don't think that's relevant here. Okay, moving on to the games. The PS3 was launched in North America with 14 titles, with another 3 being released before the end of 2006. After the first week of sales, it was confirmed that Resistance Fall of Man from Insomniac Games was the top-selling launch game in North America. The game was heavily praised by numerous video game websites, including GameSpot and IGN, both of whom awarded it their PlayStation 3 Game of the Year award for 2006. Some titles missed the launch window and were delayed until early 2007, such as The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, Fear, and Sonic the Hedgehog. During the Japanese release, Ridge Racer 7 was the top-selling game, while Mobile Suit Gundam Crossfire also fared well in sales, both of which were offerings from Namco Bandai games. PlayStation 3 launched in Europe with 24 titles, including the ones that were not offered in North American and Japanese launches, such as Formula 1 Championship Edition, MotorStorm, and Virtua Fighter 5. Resistance Fall of Man and MotorStorm were the most successful titles of 2007, and both games subsequently received sequels in the form of Resistance 2 and MotorStorm Pacific Rift. At E3 2007, Sony was able to show a number of their upcoming video games for the PS3, including Heavenly Sword, Lair, Ratchet & Clank Future, Tools of Destruction, Warhawk, and Uncharted Drake's Fortune, all of which were released in the third and fourth quarters of 2007. It also showed off a number of titles that were set for release in 2008 and 2009, most notably Killzone 2, Infamous, Gran Turismo 5 Prologue, Little Big Planet, and SOCOM US Navy SEALs Confrontation. A number of third-party exclusives were also shown, including the highly anticipated Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, alongside other high-profile third-party titles such as Grand Theft Auto 4, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, Assassin's Creed, Devil May Cry 4, and Resident Evil 5. Two other important titles for the PS3, Final Fantasy XIII and Final Fantasy Versus 13, were shown at the TGS 2007 in order to appease the Japanese market. That's kind of funny, actually. Let's see. Sony have since launched their budget range of PS3 titles known as the Greatest Hits range in North America, the Platinum range in Europe and Australia, and the Best range in Japan. Among the titles available in the budget range include Resistance Fall of Man, MotorStorm, Uncharted Drake's Fortune, Rainbow Six Vegas, Call of Duty 3, Assassin's Creed, and Ninja Gaiden Sigma. As of October 2009, Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, Ratchet & Clank Future, Tools of Destruction, Devil May Cry 4, Army of Two, Battlefield Bad Company, and Midnight Club Los Angeles have also joined the list. As of March 31st, 2012, there have been 595 million games sold for the PS3. The best-selling games are Grand Theft Auto 5, Gran Turismo 5, The Last of Us, Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception, and Uncharted 2, Among Thieves. The last game released for the PS3 was Shakedown Hawaii on August 20th, 2020. Wow. Okay. Yeah, they talk about stereoscopic 3D, the hardware, which I'm not going to mess around with. And let's see, let's just go ahead to the reception. Early PS3 reviews after launch were critical of its high price and lack of quality games. Game developers regarded the architecture as difficult to program for. PS3 was, however, commended for its hardware, including its Blu-ray home theater capabilities and graphics potential. Critical and commercial reception to the PS3 improved over time after a series of price revisions, Blu-ray's victory over HD DVD, I remember that, and the release of several well-received titles. Ars Technica's original launch review gave the PS3 only a 6 out of 10, but second review of the console in June 2008 rated it a 9 out of 10. In September 2009, IGN named PS3 as the 15th best gaming console of all time, behind both of its competitors, Wii, which was 10th, and the Xbox 360, which was 6th. However, the PS3 has won IGN's console showdown, which based on which console offers the best selection of games released during each year. In 3 of the 4 years since it began, 2008, 2009, and 2011, with Xbox winning in 2010. IGN judged PS3 to have the best game lineup of 2008 based off their review scores in comparison to those of the Wii and the Xbox 360. In a comparison piece by PC Magazine's Will Greenwald in June 2012, PS3 was selected as an overall better console compared to the Xbox 360. Pocket Lint said of the console, quote, "The PS3 has always been a brilliant games console," end quote, and that, quote, For now, this is just about the best media device for the money, end quote. I tend to agree, and that's not from personal experience, but what I've been told. I think that's where we're going to stop. There's more stuff talking about the slim models and the super slim models, but I think I've made my point. So, okay, let's move on to my limited experiences with it. This is a system that I never owned, and from here on out, the systems I talk about I never played, though my ex and her son have a PS3, and they swore by it. That was good enough for me, by the way. Until he got a Switch and smart TVs became more affordable. In my opinion, Sony should have made all versions of the PS3 backwards compatible with the PS2 instead of just one model. And that's all I have to say about it. I've seen the games. I think I've played a couple of games, but, I don't have any, long-term experience with a PS3. I mean, my ex and her son, when they used to use it, they used it all the time to play games and to watch movies and so forth, and they swore by it. So, like I said, their opinion is good enough for me. Okay, if you've got any sort of thoughts and comments about the PS3, you happen to own one and you had one for a long time and you have thoughts on it, by all means, share them with me. arcadeaddictbrian@gmail.com. All right, and finally, we're going to go on the road. Yeah, this one is a little bit apropos, considering that Carl closed Retro Electric a couple of months ago, almost completely out of nowhere. But I see he's got his retro store in Grand Rapids proper. I think it's really close to Grand Rapids. He's got that going on, and I'm glad that he's doing well for himself, because he's one of the good ones. He was a great arcade operator, and I mean, I'm gonna miss Retro Electric. It was one of the best arcades I've ever been to, and I don't say that to blow sunshine up his butt, but it was, as you'll hear in this On the Road segment. Because, yeah, this is me with my thoughts about, after I left Retro Electric and I'm heading back home. So, all right, let's get in the car. Let's roll the windows down while the weather is still nice, and let's go for a drive. And I will see you guys for episode 79. Take care. Have fun out there. Good gaming. Au revoir. Folks, Brian here, and this is part 3 of my visit out to a Retro Electric Arcade in Lowell, Michigan. I absolutely adore the place. I love it. It's small, but it's got so much awesome in it that the size almost doesn't matter. I would almost say it's the Yoda of arcades, but I may be giving too much hyperbole, because if I was going to say anything, and I think I said this when I was talking to the owner, Underground Retrocade would be the Yoda of video game arcades. You don't judge it by its size, because it packs a lot into the space that it has. But anyway, getting back to Retro Electric, I love the place. The owner, Carl, is a great guy. Great, wonderful to talk to. When I was done playing games and I'm winding down and getting ready to get out of there, and, I complimented him on a lot of things about that place, because it's There are so many callbacks to the 80s in that place, it's absolutely ridiculous. Starting with, you know, the stuff that lines the walls. There are album covers, silk screens of various bands, you know, various bands and stuff. And on the back wall left side is this vinyl picture of a mishmash of old VHS movies, not even movies, just tapes, where, you know, you would tape stuff off the TV. Well, you know, those of a certain age know exactly what I'm talking about. And cassettes, you know, various albums, and I think like mixtapes and stuff like that. And then Atari 2600 cartridges. I mean, just that art alone kicks up the, when I review this, that's going to kick up the ambiance score, because that's awesome just to look at, you know. And then right across from it is a little living room setup. That's the only way I can view it. I mean, he took a space, and right across from like 3 arcade machines, he took a space and created like a mini living room, complete with the old school flower pattern couch, and like, you know, the carpet, and the old school entertainment center. And he had 2 TVs in it. One was hooked up to a Nintendo regular NES, and the other one was hooked up to an N64. That blew my mind. And people were sitting down and playing both systems, and it looked so much like, you know, it didn't even matter who was sitting in the seat. It looked so much like, you know, just a piece of Americana. And what I mean by that is just that that's how it was in the 80s when home video gaming was really getting going, when the NES was coming out, once it became a little more affordable. So you got that in the back, you know, and then he's got like this one thing like around the corner from the living room setup, and it's all like VHS jacket sleeves, you know, of all the, you know, almost every movie of note from the 80s. I mean, the fact this guy is just so in tune with the 80s, you forget, you know, because I was a little surprised when he told me he's only 41 years old. You know, he told me that. I was like, wow. Because I didn't expect that from a guy who more or less grew. I mean, when the 80s were around, he wasn't. You know, I mean, he was at the very least like an infant and a toddler, you know, and a small child back in those days, as opposed to me, who I'm 12 years his senior. I was a teenager, you know, back in the 80s. So yeah, Carl's a great guy to talk to. We were talking about pretty much everything that, you know, we saw when we were, when we were growing up in the 80s, which was absolutely awesome. So yeah, I mean, that aside, I mean, he already in the and when I went to one of the bathrooms, he had more album sleeves, you know, and that was awesome. You know, that was really, really cool. You know, I mean, the ambiance of this place is going to be very high. You know, I loved it. It was absolutely cool. And him and his wife are really nice, really good people, which will kick up the ambiance score even more because that's part of it. But that will be for when I put out the well, by the time you hear this, I probably put out the arcade rundown and review of the place. I have to figure out where the rundown and review are going to slot in, and that's when I get home, which is an hour and a half plus. So yeah, great ambiance. Value is going to be high because, you know, he does the unlimited play, everything's on free play, and he only charges $15 and gives them a wristband for re-entry like we do at the arcade in Brighton. He does it for $15, which makes more sense because that place is in a small town. You know, Brighton is a small city, and it's more or less centrally located, so we got people coming in from all over the state of Michigan now because the word is out. You know, the word is out about the place I work at now. So if the word is out, then, you know, people who, you know, especially people of, you know, my generation, they're going to come out and they're going to play. They're going to come out and play games, and we've expanded our pinball stock, so now all the pinheads are coming out, because all they've got to do, they can come on a Sunday and pay $15. They can play as much pinball as they want. So, and that's how it was on Saturday. A lot of pinball players were there. They were playing, you know, playing machines and so on and so forth, but I digress. So yeah, both Carl and his wife are really nice people. You know, they were really nice. I love talking to Carl. Carl was awesome, you know, and, you know, he told me, we got into, you know, remember, and this place has only been legitimately open for 3 weeks. They did a soft open Christmas week, just before Christmas. They took off for Christmas, and then they reopened between Christmas and New Year's, and they've been, you know, open for less than a month, which is pretty damn good. And from what I saw when I walked in there, it was jumping in there. I mean, it wasn't like packed to the gills, but they had a lot of people. Another thing about value that'll drive up the value thing is that they have tables. You know, there's one towards the front and there's another one in the back, and on the tables are classic board games. So, you know, you can, if you want to take a break, or if you got, you know, kids who want a little break from the arcade games, they can sit down and play Sorry or Monopoly or Battleship, you know, and stuff like, I mean, when I was just walking around the place and I was recording my vocal notes or recording my notes for the place as I was walking around, there was like a couple that looked to be like in their, like, I would say probably mid to late 20s, and they were sitting there and they were playing Battleship, and I thought that was awesome, you know? So, you know, there's more to it than just the video games. And then, which will drive the value even higher, I mean, they're probably going to be close to, they're going to be somewhere between, and I know I'm going to have to settle myself down and be a little objective, but, you know, just on reaction right now, the value rating in my head right now is somewhere between, it's at least a 9, because not only do they charge a low price for re-entry, not only do they charge a low price for that, but they also have, you know, they can buy snacks. They have a whole little wall area on a wall. They have, you know, all the old school snacks along with stuff like Pocky and things like that really got popular in the 90s, which was really cool. And they got a little refrigerator with, I think, local sodas in there and other kinds of snacks, which is cool. And then in the front corner, they have they had all kinds of action figures. They had He-Man, they had Star Wars, they had the Mandalorian stuff, and he was charging reasonable prices for them. I mean, I could have picked up a Mandalorian action figure which came out only like a year or two ago for $16. That's reasonable, because now that the Mandalorian, the season 1 has ended and they're going to go into season 2 very soon, the value, especially with everything being so crazy in the pandemic, and Carl addressed this when we talked, he's charging reasonable prices for the stuff. And to the point where literally almost within a hair's breadth, almost bought a Super Nintendo system off of him because he was charging $120 for a refurbished Super Nintendo, which is more than reasonable. And I was like blown away. I'm like, dude, you realize you realize you could charge twice that and people would still pay for it? And he's like, yeah, but I've got a whole bunch of these, number one, and number two, I don't want to gouge people. I'm like, I respect that. I absolutely, positively, 100% respect that. And he is just a good dude. Just from the 45 minutes I spent just talking to him, we talked about, video games, to talk about how, he wants to get, because he's got stuff in storage and he wants to put it all out on the floor, and, talking about repairing stuff, and, every night he goes through the place and, he goes and tries to, fix like a little issues with each one of the, the games and stuff. And talking about, he prefers arcade games that have cabinets that have patina, that shows that these things were, showing the history of them, so to speak, the scars of history that these cabinets have gone through. I mean, he told me about the Galaga machine that he has, that he bought from Detroit. It still had a Detroit tax label on it when he bought it, and talking about how that he doesn't mind that an old arcade machine has like old cigarette burns from like the 80s because that's how it was. And I'm like, dude, preach. I was like, this guy 150% gets it from beginning to end. I mean, he started out as an arcade collector, a pinball collector actually. Then he moved on to arcade games, and basically I think he kind of opened up an arcade because his wife basically told him, you got too much stuff and you're gonna have to do something with it, or you're gonna have to get rid of it, or something like that. You know how it is. And I mean, I basically told him, I basically asked him, I said, dude, your wife does know who she married, right? Because he's one of us, for sure. I mean, if I put it in like a historic arcade game context, Carl would be the kid after me who loves hanging out in arcades, loves playing video games, loves learning about video games and stuff like that. That's who he would be. He would be me 10 years younger. He literally kind of is me 10 years younger, but he's, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but fortunately for him, he has the money to feed his hobby. Because God only knows, if I had the money to buy stuff, I'd buy stuff too. I'd probably be like my boss Mike, or be like him, and I'd have like a warehouse which has arcade games, from all the way from the roll-up door to the back wall, stuff like that. If I had disposable income, but I've never had it like that. So yeah, great guy, awesome guy to just talk arcade games with and talk about arcades. I mean, we talked about Chicago, Galloping Ghosts, we talked about Pinball Pete's. As a matter of fact, if I didn't have to return this rental car in an hour and a half, I'd stop in Lansing and, just stop by Pinball Pete's real quick, just to go there and check that one out. Because I've been wanting to check out Pinball Pete's for a while, the Lansing storefront, but I just haven't been able to get out this way. Sorry, I'm opening my ginger ale because I'm like really thirsty. I spent 45 minutes talking to the guy, and he seemed to have a real appreciation of my own history as it relates to his experiences with video games and arcades, which was awesome. I mean, we immediately sort of clicked when we started talking, in regard to, our experiences and stuff. Because he grew up in that area. I think he's grown up in like the Grand Rapids area all his life. And he lives out there, and he told me he used to commute from the Grand Rapids area to Detroit for work. And he used to spend the night in a place like Northville, and he would just go to various arcades in the area. And I'm like, this guy's like the younger brother I've ever had. I mean, for real. Because, I mean, he's doing things that if I was in a similar situation, I would do. And in similar and kind of like sort of similar situations I have done, And he didn't have a lot of arcades growing up. He had a few, because he was talking to me about how it was for him in like the late 80s, early 90s, which was how it was for me in the early to mid 80s. The exact same thing. Go to the mall, or, go to like, the 7-Eleven or the, or the movie theater, and all these places had video games. Because that's how it was for me going from the 70s all the way to the late 80s when all the arcades in my area started shutting down. And then how it was for me again when I got to Orlando in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, I should say. And then they started closing down in like the mid to late 90s. So, I mean, it's just so great and so awesome to talk to somebody who had similar situations. I told him about how, I was lucky that I had like 6 arcades within a 30-minute drive of my house, or something like that. Well, let's go down the list real quick. We had Trumbull Mall Arcade, that was only like a 10-minute drive from my house. You had Spanky's, which was like a 10-minute drive from my house the other way. Wizards, which was only like a half a block down the street from Spanky's before it burned down. Milford Rec was a half hour away. Then you had Connecticut Post Mall, which was only like a mile away from Milford Rec. And you had Arnie's Place, which was half a mile to the west, or not half a mile, half an hour to the west. So I was lucky. I had all that. And I'm pretty sure at some point, you'll probably hear it beforehand. I don't know. It all depends on where this On the Road segment falls, but you're probably going to hear me sort of pontificate about how lucky I was when I was growing up. Because, yeah, I mean, I had to sit back and think about it. And then I had, for a couple of years, we had the Lafayette Plaza Arcade. Then we had the News Corner. Then we had Bolorama. And so on top of that, we had game rooms. And then on top of that, we not only had game rooms, but we also had, little mom and pop stores and bodegas that had a couple of one or two video game cabinets in them. On top of all that, I mean, I was lucky to grow up in that time when video games more or less ruled the planet. So yeah, I'm gonna go into that in detail in an upcoming On the Road segment. So just standing there, talking to Carl and hearing his experiences and hearing, the things that he did when he was a kid, and then it all sort of came through, when we're talking, because I recognize the passion in him that I have, that Jack Danger has for pinball, that Greg Hansen has, that Doc Mack has, that my boss Mike has. Same thing. When you're into this, you're into this. For real. You have to have a passion for it. That's what led me to start recording this podcast in the first place, because I realized that I have a passion for this stuff. So, it's just one of those things where, I'm just like, this is just awesome. Just to talk to somebody who wears that passion on his sleeve. I mean, everywhere you look around Retro Electric Arcade, you see the passion that Carl has for this. It was the same thing in the arcade in Brighton before I started working there. When Mike finally, figured out, how his arcade was going to look, because he went through several renditions of it before he settled on how it was going to look. And then, he put in the back glasses and, had the neon signage, and had had a couple of other signages in there and stuff like that. I mean, even the pinball arcade in the Monroe Mall, you can see that, because they took the time. That's a small storefront in a mall that doesn't have very many open stores in it. It's basically, as brick and mortar would say, it's a dead mall. It really is. But it's still in there, and that's awesome. And that rundown and review is coming very soon. If it hasn't already posted by the time I put this segment in an episode, because God only knows. I just thinking about it, because I'm driving, I'm not able to look at my my episode listing, but with the Chicago trip, which I decided to do a very condensed, when I did that 5-parter, everything is very condensed. So, like I said, at the time, as we speak right now, I have episodes well into the 70s. So by then, unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff that I need to do, stuff that I've been asked to do. So this segment may not come through until somewhere at least in the 60s. So we'll see. Anyway, but like I said, you just walk around the place and you can see that, Carl is wearing his influences and his passions on his sleeve. In the even in the bathrooms, where he put up more movie posters and album sleeves, album jackets, I should say, album covers, and just seeing all that is just so awesome. It's so wonderful just to see. I mean, like I said, the ambiance is going to be through the roof for this place, as small as it is. Getting to the games, he's only got a grand total of 46, 47 machines, I actually listed what machines he had in my vocal notes. I think he had 29 arcade machines, including an iCade, and I'm really coming to hate iCades because it's, like I said, by this time you hear this, the review for Bobcat Bonnie's and Keystone Bar and Arcade is going to be out. If it hasn't already been out by now, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm finding out that iCades only have 4-way joysticks and they need 8 ways, because there are some games that need an 8-way joystick in order to play properly. And, it's stuff like that. I really don't like iCades for that reason. I mean, playing a game like Mr. Do, sure. Playing a game like Pac-Man or Donkey Kong, which are 4-way joysticks, sure, no problem. But when you try to play a game like, let's say, Time Pilot, which needs an 8-way joystick in order to work properly, yeah, it's a little bit of frustration going on there. I should have talked to Carl about that, but I was so jazzed to hear, hear his passion and hear, how he got to where he is and all that stuff. I mean, his story is pretty damn cool, I have to say. Let's see. So yeah, he's only got 46 machines. He's got 8 or 9 pinball machines, including a Guns N' Roses. That's his newest one. I think he's got a Mandalorian in there too. And that's how we really started talking, because that's how we started talking about the pinballs and whatnot. And he's actually been to the arcade in Brighton, which is awesome. So he knows what our place is about, which is really cool. Let's see, what else? The location is okay. I mean, for me, yeah, it's a haul to get out there. It's an hour and 40 minutes to get there, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad at all. It's just basically you just get on Interstate 96, you get to State Road 50, take that north to State Road 21 westbound, which is a left-hand turn. Go down the street for a mile, and it's on your right. And also, the location will actually get a bump because of where it sits in town. Because it's right in the middle of a lot of things. It's literally next door to a movie theater. So that will help his business a lot. I mean, he was really smart getting that storefront, because not only that, there are all the major fast food restaurants are within a quarter mile of the place. Like I said, there's a movie theater literally next door. Plenty of parking, and it's easy to find. I mean, when he first opened, he didn't have the signage for the place, but when I went there today, he had signage, and it was easy to spot from the road. So he'll get some bonus points for that. I mean, the selection is a little light, but the cross section is really good. I mean, he had a good selection ranging from, what was the oldest machine in there? The Pac-Man machine, which was a Hyper Pac-Man, ranging from that all the way to, what was the newest machine he had in there? I think the newest arcade game he had in there was Primal Rage, I think? Because, let's see, he had UN Squadron, he had... Yeah, I think that's about it. So he kept it, he had a good cross-section, but it was mostly 80s and 90s stuff, which is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable. So, overall, I had a really good time in that place. You know, when I first got there, it was really busy. I had to walk by, you know, a machine like 2 or 3 times in order to, wait out people, so I could play the machines. But that's okay. Nothing to it. I mean, it's to be expected. I mean, this is another case of an arcade that's small and quite honestly, it's fledgling. I mean, it's just starting out. Like I said, he's been legitimately opened for less than a month. So it's going to be, even right now, he's punching above his weight class. Not just for the games, but for everything around it. For the ambiance, for the atmosphere. The only thing that was missing was playing some 80s music. But he also was talking to me about how sometimes, the noise from all the machines just bounces around because he doesn't have any carpeting to absorb some of the sound, which is unfortunate. But, there's not much to be done about that, really, because he doesn't want to, at least from my understanding, he doesn't want to spend the expense to carpet the floor. So he just kind of deals with it. But all in all, it was a very positive experience, for sure. Good place. Him and his wife are good people, because his wife was really, I talked to her for a few minutes when I first got in the place. She was telling, we had a nice little conversation before, I, kind of broke away to, check the place out and play some games. The functionality, I'll give that slightly above average marks because most of the games worked fairly well. But there were a couple that were, like with the UN Squadron, the diagonals on the controller weren't working correctly, and I should have told Carl about that, but I forgot to. What else? Just little minor issues here and there, which is fine. He's just starting out, so, I'll cut him some slack. If he was open for like a year and these things were happening, yeah, I'd probably dock him, but I'll cut him slack on that because he was only open for less than a month. So yeah, once again, if you're in the Grand Rapids area or the Lansing area, it's worth, if you're from Lansing, it's a 45-minute drive. It's worth the drive to come out here. I mean, I live in Ann Arbor. It's an hour and 45 for me, or close to it. And I'm going to have to boogie, because I'm just now getting into Lansing. I'm going to have to boogie in order to get to the, the zip car point to drop off the car without, incurring late fees. I may have to extend my rental by 30 minutes, depending. I'll see. When I get closer to Ann Arbor, I'll see if I can, see if I have to do that. But aside from that, yes, it was a very positive experience on almost all fronts. I mean, the wave of nostalgia will just knock you over. And I'm not, and that's not hyperbole. If you grew up in the 80s, this place is for you. Because everything in there is screaming 80s, the classic arcade era. And I mean, I wish Carl nothing but success with the place because, when you have that kind of level of passion and you have the ability to actually follow that dream and open arcade, Carl is me if I actually had the funds and the machines to open an arcade. If I had the wherewithal to open an arcade, yeah, it would be kind of like that. It would be. So, yeah, I mean, I give... Oops, nope, stay this way. What am I doing? Wow. So yeah, I mean, all the success and all the best in the world to you and your wife, Carl. You know, you guys are just starting out, and it's just awesome to see that even in this fledgling state, that you guys have such a good read on it. You know, and he has the right attitude when it comes to it. It's like he doesn't want pristine games. He wants those that are a little beat up but play very well. And, you know, as much as I can appreciate a arcade cabinet in excellent shape, as much as I can appreciate that, you know, I don't, I appreciate as much, if not a little bit more, one that looks its age and has some, battle scars because it's been through the wars, it's been through the abuse, but it still plays great. And that's just how I feel about, that when it comes to arcade machines. So anyway, I'm gonna listen to some music and kind of just, let the thoughts and the experience wash over me a little bit. And I gotta put the hammer down a little bit in order to get to Ann Arbor in time to drop the car off. I mean, we're looking at, it's now 6:52 p.m. and I have to have this car back in its rental slot by 8 p.m. Because I do not want to incur late fees. I mean, I'm already going to pay more because of the miles I'm putting on this thing. But, it is what it is. Anyway, so those are my on-the-road aftermath thoughts about Retro Electric Arcade. There will be a rundown and review coming. And, like I said, this place, I just wish it was a little closer to me, because I'd come out here every weekend, at least a couple Sundays a month, because this place is just so cool and so awesome. And it just shocks me. It absolutely 100% shocks and surprises me that Carl got it so right, even at the outset. So yeah, there it is. Okay, so yeah, this is Brian, saying so long, be safe, be smart, good gaming, have fun out there, au revoir.
You have been listening to the Confessions of an Arcade Addict podcast. All music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his music at incompetech.com. You can contact the show by voicemail at area code 734-623-0832. You can also contact the show through voicemail at arcadeaddictbrian@gmail.com, and all links pertaining to the show can be found at Linktree. That's linktr.ee/arcadeaddictbrian. So until next time, you have been listening to the Confessions of an Arcade Addict podcast. See you then.